Well, in the last 24 hours, we've learned about a scandal at the TOR oil refinery, a major one, leading to the loss of millions and millions of cedis indeed. There's a shocking one that I'll go through for you very shortly. Involves the missing cables as well, all at the TOR oil refinery. So I wanted to quickly go through what the finding of the interim management committee is on the TOR oil issue. They found that just on the 4th of September, this is just last month, 105,000 liters of product. This is gas disappeared from TOR just like that. And you wonder, how on earth is it possible that 105,927 liters of product will just disappear into thin air? Imagine the logistics you require to transport that amount of gas, and nobody saw this. That's one of the findings. There's more. They also discovered that 255,000 liters, and this time it has to be wrongful loading of aviation turbine kerosene instead of regular kerosene into a BRV truck. This also happened on between 21st and 25th of September this year. This is what the interim committee found. Pretty shocking indeed. Now, they also found the disappearance of electrical cables, and this for me is the one that drops a jaw, right? 18 drums of electrical cables, and if you know what electrical cables are and for the sort of industrial work that will be involved, these will be very heavy cables indeed. And yet 18 drums of that disappeared just into thin air, just like that, amounting to 10.4 million Ghana cedis. And this is in April of 2021. So this year alone, you can just accumulate the numbers involved. Huge figures of disappearances at the TOR oil refinery. Now, we also have learned, again from the Interim Management Committee statement, that disappearance of LPG belonging to a client of the BDC in 2012 and 2015, also missing. A monetary value of $4.8 million. So it just shows you that this problem with TOR is something that has been there. But this year alone has seen quite a number of incidents recorded already. Now, if you look at the losses, and I just want to go back historically, in 2018, we saw 24 million losses of products, right? TOR storage. The bulk distributors store part of their products at TOR because it's supposed to be an oil refinery. And in Ghana, we don't have enough storage capacity. And so when the boxed storage space is full, they use the TOR storage. But you put stuff there as a private BDC, and you go and you have losses, and government obviously will have to pay. The state will have to pay because the private person invests that much to buy something of this amount and stores this in a state warehouse. You expect to get it back. If not, the state will have to bear it. In 2018, we saw $24 million worth of losses. 2019, just the first 4 months alone, we saw 186 million cedis worth of losses at the TOR oil refinery alone. Now, again, you see, this is the Energy Ministry reacting to this, that there's an assurance that the report will be presented to the President and appropriate sanctions applied, including possible prosecutions. We've seen details of a number of TOR staff who have been interdicted as a result of this. We'll get into that shortly. What will happen to them? Is the interdiction enough? We'll get into that very shortly. We also know that the minority has waded into this. They want a parliamentary probe into this matter. It says it's a dereliction of duty at the management level of TOR. And they say that since 2017, the TOR oil refinery has been mismanaged with the appointment of 4 different chief executives. And this year, in fact, the chief executive and the deputy were both sacked. It is on the back of which they appointed this interim management committee to do his work. The minority now brings up some historical facts just to make their point that under the administration, they saved the refinery millions of dollars by restructuring this existing 650 million debt, which they inherited, and reduce it to 300 million. That's what they say. We'll check that fact shortly when we get into the details. They also pledged not to sit on consent, so they want Parliament to look into this, and they say they cannot trust the government and the interim management committee to look into the matter. But there's an interim management committee that has put out these details, and so isn't there an issue there to look at in terms of the work that you're doing already? We'll get into that. So that's where we are with this. It's a big matter, affects all of us, because in the end, our tax will be used to pay for this. My guests are joining me tonight. You want to stay with me because we're going to be getting to this very fascinating jaw-dropping scandal at TOR. My guests next. And thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. And my guests joining me in the studio this evening, of course, to look at this very, I guess, scandalous findings of the committee is Rodney Nkrumah-Boateng, the head of communications at the Energy Ministry. He joins me in the studio. Also joining me tonight via Zoom is Kojo Poku. He's an energy analyst and agrees to speak to us via Zoom. The Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of BOC, the BOC, the BDCs, is also joining me. That's Senor Hosi. Joins me also via Zoom. And of course, as you've seen already, the minority has issued a statement today. They want a parliamentary probe into this matter. And we can speak to Edward Bauer, who is the member of the Mines Energy Committee in Parliament, and MP for Bongo. Thank you all, gentlemen, for your time here on PM Express. Rodney, let me start with you on this. Sure. We saw the interim. So this is the work of the interim management committee. That's
correct. Yes, the three-man.
I wonder what their mandate was it part of to investigate?
Yes, their mandate was included investigating issues that are arising, looking at HR and financial audits, and then basically establishing everything and looking at partnerships and possibly the way forward, and then eventually to submit the report to the president through the minister. I think I've got it somewhere here.
Yeah. So this is firmly within their remit.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And so they made this discovery. Let's talk about what has happened since this was discovered. A few of the TOR staff have been interdicted.
That's correct. Yes.
Some of them queried. How many?
I don't have a number to it because this is purely being led by TOR. The IMC at TOR, and the ministry is not keeping an arm's length.
Yeah.
Because they have a clear mandate. I don't have a figure, and I don't have names. I've seen names being bandied about on social media, but I don't want to get into all that because I cannot vouch for its authenticity. But it's an ongoing process, and the number that may be available today may not be available tomorrow. It might change either way as they go in, because the committee did say that if any other people are found to have been involved, then yes, we'll take it from there. If people are, so as we go on, if other people get caught up in the net, so to speak, then of course the necessary action will be taken.
So this is not the end of it?
No, it's not the end of it. It's an ongoing process.
Okay. I see. So I was wondering, why then did they issue this statement?
Remember that the committee initially had a 3-month mandate.
Okay.
My understanding, I have to have it verified, is that it's going to be extended, or that it's been extended, something along those lines. So this is a sort of interim. They say, so far, this is what has happened.
Yeah.
It's ongoing. As and when there are further developments, we will keep the public in the know. That is the thrust of the statement.
So just important to establish that this committee, interim management committee, was established, just for those who don't know the background. I might have mentioned it at the beginning.
Yeah.
When the chief executive and the deputy were asked to step aside.
That's correct, back in July.
And then this committee was put in place. Now, they were put in place, as I've explained, fundamentally to sort of do an audit.
That's correct.
Because of all these issues that we knew had been there. I mean, nobody had uncovered it. So go there, let's look at what it. So for now, they were supposed to prevent and avert. I mean, look at what is happening and report to the minister, president,
for the attention
for
of the
action
president. The president will take action. But just before going quickly, The committee's terms of reference included, among others, technical and human resource audits, as well as receiving and assessing viable partnerships for TOR, if any. So it wasn't just to go in and then find people coupled, but to look at the whole structure of TOR and give government the necessary advice to enable it to take things forward.
Yeah. Now, the key question that we need to probe is, so this committee came into force in July.
That's correct, yes.
Under his watch, they themselves appear to have indicted themselves. Under his watch, 4th of September, 150,000 liters of gas vanished. And
That's
then
correct, yes.
21st to 25th September this year, 257,000 liters of aviation turbine kerosene instead of kerosene wrongfully loaded, right? That is an indictment on the committee.
I personally, I'm quite surprised that anyone who knows that, look, we have an IMC in place, looking at things, would even go that far. I'm not sure I would call it an indictment because the important point is, what is the IMC supposed to be doing? And I'm sure that all these things were happening even as recently as September because there were certain inherent structural deficiencies in the system. I'm not sure we would want to lumber that on the heads of the IMC. I mean,
why not?
Because these are structural long-term issues. They only came in July.
I'm sorry, Rodney.
And I understand where you're going.
Sorry, Rodney. On June 16, not July, June 16.
I understand.
The minister inaugurated the 3-member committee.
That's correct. Yes.
July, August,
September.
Then September.
Yes.
Under their what? The thing they were supposed to be preventing.
Let's get their terms of reference correct.
Yeah.
They are not in there as day-to-day management system in the sense that you understand it. The mandate, I've just read it out to you, to carry out an audit, among other things. Look at viable partnerships, HR.
Interim management.
Interim
So they were running the place in the interim for 3 months.
For 3 months.
And then in that 3 months, fraud happens under their watch.
In that 3 months, some people...
And then they are reporting to us that, yeah, whilst we were there, we saw that.
Hold on, but are they
that is an indictment.
No, hold on. Are they supposed to cover it up? Of course not. You would be disappointed if they did.
To do what?
And they're saying that, are they supposed to cover it up? And I'm saying to you that these findings point not to a 3-month window. It points to a long-term structural problem that allowed these things to happen. And you can't expect that you'd have an interim management comes in and then suddenly the whole place is Snow White. Of course not. That would be unrealistic.
No, I don't.
And so let's be measured, I think, in lumbering everything and saying, oh, you must be that hopeless, or you can't function if under your watch within 2 months all these things are happening. Because the problem is a much deeper thing than, it would have to take quite a sophisticated system that has been in place for some time. Remember, some of these issues even go back as far as 10 years ago, 9 years ago.
Yeah, but we'll come to that. We'll come to the historical.
For it to, and TOR has had issues.
True,
God knows
true.
how.
We illustrated in the touch.
Yeah.
There's historical issues. But it definitely, you've been put there to do an audit because of possible fraud that's happening, report to the minister, send to the president for action to be taken. Then under your watch, huge amounts of letters missing.
We could go around and round in circles on this point.
But you don't admit that is an indictment of the committee's work.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
What would you say it is?
I just said it. I said it initially, and I said, look, I find it personally quite surprising that staff, knowing that you have an IMC hanging on your neck, sitting on your neck, knowing that they have a clear mandate to investigate, to do an audit, to look at what's going wrong in terms of finances, in terms of technical staff, in terms of equipment, in terms of partnership, that for this to then be hatched and done tells you that it is not something that was done overnight. It's something that clearly has been a long-term problem. And I'm sure that, I can't say for sure, but I'm sure that eventually, by the end of the day, even more will be discovered about these structural weaknesses that have enabled these to happen.
You see, the way you put it appears to say this was happening before they got there.
I am saying.
Except that
of course not. The dates are clear.
Exactly.
They could have chosen to.
Exactly.
No, but hold on. The important thing is that they've made a clean breast of it. The important thing is that these facts are out there for you and I to absorb. Anyone could have just said, just in case people think that we are incompetent, let's take out the dates and say these things have happened. But they have been forthright and have said, these are the things that we have discovered. I'm not suggesting that they happened before. Of course not.
That's obvious.
I am saying.
So it's under their watch.
I'm saying that for this thing to have happened tells you that there is a long-term structural, because these things cannot just happen overnight. That there's a certain culture, that there's a certain structural deficiency.
That encourages it,
That
in spite of the fact that you have an interim manager committee.
Exactly.
Stay with me. I want to bring in my other guest on Zoom. Let me start with Kujo Poku. What's your reaction to this?
Well, Evans, good evening and good evening to my senior, Rodney. You guys should put this thing in perspective. We are the ones who prompted this. If you saw our press release over the weekend, which was carried by most of the media, we issued a quarterly report. The Institute for Energy Research, Policy and Research issued a review. And we asked that 4 months into the IMC, what have they done? We have not seen anything, no publication, no report, nothing of what they've done. And it's as a response of that this letter that we've all seen came out. So this didn't come out of the blue, or it is not somebody trying to update us on what they are doing. It is as a result of our publication that they hastily put that letter in the media. Now, as my senior rightfully said, I think it's a very unfortunate that some names have been put out there when all we have is some people being given queries. The people that their names are in the media, or people that the Ghana Web and all these people are mentioning their names, are only sectional heads. They are department heads. They've been queried that, look, during your watch, this happened. Please answer a query. There is nothing that says that they are the people that stole. There's nothing that says that they are the people responsible for the theft. It is just a query that has been given to them. And if you see the letter that TOR put out there, the letter clearly says that they are yet to commence investigation. So let's try and put this thing in perspective. It's really unfortunate that people are saying that, look, these guys, Yoko PNI is arresting them and all that. It's not the case. Now, let's go into what you said, my reaction. My reaction is much ado about nothing. Like Evans, you said, they've been put there for 4 months. And in 4 months, we are told that, oh, there's 2012, 2015 theft. There is this theft, there is that theft, and queries has been issued. These are things that you met. Even on the last days of Mr. Francis Boateng, who was the MD asked to step aside, there was a reconciliation issue between Woodfield and TOR, where Woodfields wrote a letter and even did a publication in the papers that their fuel were missing. And they couldn't pay money owed to TOR because they need to reconcile their balances with what TOR owes them. And TOR was saying that, look, Woodfield owes them money. So issue of theft, issue of losses in products in tanks has something that's been known. And if the IMC was very serious in tackling this matter, it will have been one of the first things they did when they got there. And rightfully so, they did not. And you see that they have even suffered losses under their watch. So for me, I was surprised that my senior is saying that he has heard that their mandate has been extended. I think clearly they should be removed and a substantive CEO and a board put in place and let the ministry work with the board and a CEO. Honestly, I don't see what the IMC is doing, because they were supposed to go and undertake an audit of human resource and technical audit. If they've not done that in 3 to 4 months, when are they going to finish that?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Housey, you were, of course, the chief executive of the BDC, so will join us very shortly. But let me get to Obal. Mr. Obal, you issued a statement today, and I think you also made a statement recommendation that the IMC should be dissolved. And that because you also don't have faith in the IMC, you want Parliament to step in here. But the work has already been done, is it not? I mean, at least the ministry the IMC is working on the ministry's behalf, and there's commitments to prosecute where the need be.
Good evening, Evans, and then good evening to the micro panelists. I think that basically I agree with Kojo when he indicates that the IMC must hurry up with their job, and then we should have one very competent board put in place and a very competent CEO put in place, giving clear mandate in terms of deliverables. as to what the person must deliver within a specific time. That is the only way we could see things done. But you see, Evans, I see that TOR in particular, just like other SOEs in the energy sector, are suffering from serious political interference. I explain to you why. Today, our discussion, and I see on the caption for this discussion is TOR missing oil scandal. That's why you've put there. The first question I need to make is that the issue of product losses have never been just things that just happened in September. No, that's true. I agree with all that they're saying. It is for this very reason that after the experimentation in BOST, you remember that BOST also had serious problems when it came to issues of product losses.
Yeah.
The fact that the products that were put there by private companies could not be accounted for. Yeah. And so under the Iwedako's administration, they introduced what we call the TSL, who came in as private company, who came in to take care of the product. And any time a product could not be accounted for, the liability was charged to the private company. And so it was, and within that period, we realized that nothing happened. We never had product losses again. We didn't hear of all these stories that we were hearing before TSL came. Indeed, as we speak today, TSL is still in place. Because when this government came, initially they suspended them for some time, later realized that no, it is better to go back for them. A Iwedaku was now made in between July 2015 and January 2021. You know, that was when the NDC went out of power. A Iwedaku again instituted yet another private company, just like TSL, in TOR, to be able to sit there and make sure that products that were found in what they call the tanks of TOR were accounted for properly. And that was, it's known as the PCMC, that's the Premium Collateral Management Systems. And they were also supposed to do that. Guess what? When Isaac Asser came in as the chief executive of TOR, as part of the so-called Rambo-style type of changing things, we are making an assessment to see which are the systems that work and which systems don't work. These people were disbanded and they were asked to pack their bags and leave. So if you look at July 2015 up to January 2015, no product was lost under the watch of this company. No product was lost. And suddenly, the people took over again, and again, it was business as usual. Two, look, and I understand when the person from the ministry, and then Kojo, talks about the fact that they are still doing the investigations and other things, and names that have been banned cannot be ascertained or maybe confirmed as to whether they are the same names or not. But if these are the names, if these names were to be true, I'm assuming that if they are true, the names that have been published are true, you will realize that some of the names that were there were interdicted in 2015, 2016 for such actions.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Some of the names that we've seen has been interdicted.
Yes, some of the names that have been banned, I don't know the authenticity of those names. But if those names are anything to go by, they were interdicted by the board of TOR. And when MPP came in, they described that particular interdiction as political victimization and brought them back.
I see.
So I'm just trying to tell you that, I'm just trying to make the point that until we begin to start looking at national assets such as TOR and other SOEs as entities that should be viable, profit-making entities, and that we should have competence as part of the hallmarks in appointing such people, these stories we will continuously narrate them.
Yeah,
for me, yes.
But Bawa, you mentioned that under the period when Iwedaku and Co were there, disappearances didn't happen. But if you look at the IMC statement, they talk about a disappearance in 2012 and 2015, which cost the taxpayer, yes, 4.8 million. So,
the LPG.
Yes.
The LPG, as we speak, actually, when in July 2015, when the Iwedaku administration took over, the issue of the LPG missing, not being accounted for was there. And actually, after that time, it became a liability on TOR. So it was one of the liabilities he inherited as a result of the fact that this was something that was given to another person. These were part of the reasons. Look, for example, at the time he got there, TOR since 2005 did not even have management accounts in place, not to talk of audited accounts. They didn't have it. You had situations where a man and his wife were controlling two different types of systems. I mean, I'm just trying to tell you that it was being run as if it was somebody's private business, that all the interest and other things were being put in people's pockets. So the initial preliminary...
Ivan, I think that I have to respond to some of the submissions they are making here. We shouldn't be misleading.
That's in your hospital. Edobah, give me a second. Give me a second. Let me...
I'm sorry. I'm sure Baba is a very... He's misinformed. Baba, don't you are misinformed. You are misinformed, respectfully.
Senor.
Okay.
Hello.
Let me... Senor,
when you finish, you have your say.
Yes. Senor, please hold on for me.
I think the misinformation is becoming too much.
No, but hold on for me, Senor, briefly.
Senor,
let
you and I have had this discussion. Some of these discussions.
Wrap up for me. Wrap up for me. Let me go to it. Let me get his.
Yes, I am just trying to make the point that until we stop having political interference in the running of SOEs, we will have these problems. And irrespective of whoever you bring, if the person does not have a free hand and the person is competent enough to run the affairs of a state-owned enterprise, you will definitely have these stories to narrate.
Okay.
That's the point I was just trying to make.
Senor, your reaction?
One, I don't want Bauer and his party to try and pretend to have been holier than the Pope. Mr. Wadaku reign at all was not effectively a productive one. Economically, absolutely not the case. These losses happen now that they are watched. Well, I mean, what are you talking about? What losses did the Wadaku leave boss with? The Wadaku said that he was making profits at the time. We all went and there were parties, I mean, in white and all that, only for him to leave office. And all we see next is about what, $200-300 million losses that boss has been working hard to pay. And we've been increasing our what do you call it, our boss margin just to pay these things. There is a problem, and the problem is politics. And I agree with you on that side. But if you agree that it's politics, you should admit that your administration itself is as guilty as the word itself. You have all failed this country. Both the MPP and NDC have not done well for this country as far as TOR as an institution is concerned. This is an institution that cannot be run with what, about 1,000 employees, and what, a 45,000 barrel per day institution. What really goes into your thinking when you really oversee a sector like this, and then you actually see it, and who is putting the workers there? It's politicians who are influencing who goes there. The place is overstaffed. You have a directing mind, which is a political entity. You set up the board, which is again a political entity. The considerations are not commercial. Refinery is not an emotional business. It is a professional business. And if you guys should admit the fact that you failed, apologize to the people of this country. I don't want to hear any politician, respectfully, trying to blame any other politician. You have all failed us. We have spent 1.2 billion, in fact, more than that, but 1.24 billion US dollars in TOR debt recovery levy. What do we have to show for it? At the time that Kufuor brought this thing up, the TOR debt itself was just about $400 million. We have spent that and collected that money from the poor people of Ghana. What have you all got to show for it? Billion on TOR and this debt. TOR is still in debt. It is the only debt that you pay, and you end up with more debt. I don't even understand. So please, the last thing I want to hear from any politician is trying to make any of the administration that have come to pass as one that has been potent or competent. There's only one way for TOR, and that has been on the card for long. But politicians have milked TOR and made engineers look like some, I can't use the word I need to use, and that is the fact. If you run TOR the way you run your homes, you run your business, do you think you actually have a home today? So please, no politician should cite any other politician. You should all come together and admit that we should forgive you, and we are all willing to forgive you, and we'll work from there. The way out, Evans, it's simple. TOR needs to be privatized. I mean, TOR needs to be privatized because we have given this to politicians to run since 1977. Prior to politicians running TOR, TOR was a very potent entity. We brought in Ghana Supply Commission to take over the trading aspect of TOR by supplying its crude. We practically collapsed the Ghana Supply Commission. We handed over that role later to GNPC. We almost crashed GNPC with TOR's activities. We brought in the GCB to come and fund it. We almost crashed GCB, just in case you don't know. GCB almost would not have been a bank. It almost would not have been the bank for the single account called TOR. Who has been managing the affairs at all this while? I beg you, have an honest conversation about it, and let's look for an honest way forward for our country. That's my case.
Bawa, stay with me. I'll come to you.
Listen.
Bawa, just a second. Just a second.
Evans, just a line. I just want to.
Okay.
You know, I took the pain to listen to Senor Jose, and when he said that we should stop misinforming the public, I thought he was going to state any of the things I said that was inaccurate. Because we're talking about lost products. In fact, they were
trying to absorb the one that is not absorbable.
Your issues with Wedako has nothing to do with me. You see, the point I'm just trying to make to you, what I'm just trying to state is that there were systems that were put in what they call TOR, to ensure that in terms of product losses.
This is data. How can you do 300 release? All of you have made mistakes.
Excuse me. Look, the point I'm making is that
product losses that they are getting at cost. That today they are paying.
Which of the statements I made that was not factual? Is it the case that
I said it is wrong for you to try and you were trying to suggest that one regime in this whole TOR trajectory, all right, is not a part of this problem. And I'm telling you, it is wrong. Every single person who has run through TOR has seen it, and every single person who has been appointed by this whole class of politicians.
Okay.
So please, to tell us that, look, you have realized that.
The point I'm making is, you see,
politicians, you don't
want what I've said is a crisis you have to deal with.
Okay.
I don't want you to do the thing like somebody MPP was.
Let's make progress.
All of you were
have not refuted. You have not refuted a single thing I have said.
I want to make progress.
I have refuted it. You have made categorical submissions about the one that was and I'm telling you, you are trying to suggest that
the question is that between July
2015, gentlemen, I want to make progress. I think that it's without doubt, I must say, that Senor Jose is right in asserting that all the administrations, political administrations, have been guilty of the TOR mess. There may have been many interventions to try, and that is what Bawa is trying to articulate, interventions to try and deal with the problem. All those interventions hasn't worked, and that has been, it's a fact. I want to come to, and Kojo Poku, I'll come to you shortly, stay with me. But you with me in the studio, you represent the current administration, as far as the energy ministry is concerned. You've heard the banter there. There is something in there that talks about the problem that we're in. What is the new thinking at the ministry now to dealing with this problem that clearly Senor Jose had laid out? That's been there for years, and all administrations.
Yes, I mean, just before you get to the, I have a paper here right in front of me, 2009, written by Franklin Kujo and Bryce Simmons, tracing the whole trajectory of TOR right up to 2009, and it indicts both
everybody
political parties. So I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah. No, I mean, so that is why I want to make progress.
What I'm making here is that when the minister took over and he visited TOR, and in fact, TOR was the first agency under the ministry that he visited within a week of taking office. And that underscored the importance that he placed on TOR as a strategic asset, national asset, that should come out of its mess. And his thinking is along the lines of TOR, not capitalization as in government throwing more money at it. Because when you do that, with TOR's problems that it has, you're just fetching water with a basket. So he's thinking along the lines of getting the structures in place, the management structures in place, little interference, no interference, and then looking at viable partnerships to help TOR to get back on its feet. So, and a lot will be influenced by what the report comes out with and when advice is taken, and then looking at putting TOR in a new path, in a new trajectory, looking at partnerships, viable partnerships, so that TOR can attract the necessary investment, not necessarily with government throwing money at it, which unfortunately has been the process all throughout these years. So we're looking at viable partnerships.
So both Kojo Poku and Bawa had said, and in fact, to some extent, even Senor, that the interim management committee you have is not a solution to the problem.
Nobody proposed it as a long-term solution. They have a clear mandate. They have to present their report to the minister for onward transmission to the president. Then a decision will be made as to, of course, TOR will have to have a board and a management structure at some time. Of course, it cannot. The whole point, The management committee is interim. I mean,
it was interim. It was 3 months.
Yes.
You say their tenure has been extended.
That's my understanding. I don't want to give full confirmation.
Okay, but I mean,
because if it's 3 months, I mean, of course.
It's expired already.
Indeed.
Yes.
So
the fact that they are still there suggests that
what I can assure
there's
you,
an extension
what I
of
can
tenure.
assure you, Evans, is that their tenure is not going to be provisional in the PNDC sense. It's not going to be 11-year provisional. It's going to be, if it's interim, it's going to be interim. I cannot say, it's not in my place to say how much longer they're going to be there, but they are not going to be there as a permanent thing, clearly. They are going to eventually have to submit their report because they'll have to conclude their investigation.
Okay, so
and then submit their report to the minister. Then the minister will study it, look at the recommendations, and then of course we'll take it from there.
But one of the recommendations on the table currently, and that's what I was asking about you thinking here, is simply take your hands off this and privatize it.
The privatization, I mean,
how
say the same for ECG?
government has attempted to privatize ECG.
The point I'm making is that...
I ain't not been a PDS scandal. ECG will be managed in the private hands. I mean, I'm just asking. Yeah,
the point I'm making here is that you don't just say, oh, privatization, and then hello, everything is sorted out. There's a whole thing, a range of options are available for government to look at. The report is not in yet.
But if you read what the minister said on the day he inaugurated the interim, there's a lot of emphasis on partners.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, I have it here.
So I get a sense.
TOR is a strategic asset. We'll keep it.
I get a sense that the government's big idea going forward is finding some strategic private partner for TOR.
The government's thinking is looking at partnership as a viable.
Yes. Which is what has been articulated publicly.
That's different from privatization. Privatization.
Yeah, I get it. So I'm saying that appears to be this current administration's approach.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
That they are hoping that this interim management committee will come up with some suggestions as to who can we partner to get TOR
rather than throwing public money at all the time.
Okay. But Kojopoku, what do you make of that alternative? You seriously believe that TOR, as it currently is, with all the debt it's carrying around, a private partner would like to risk partnering it?
Well, not necessarily, but you see, private participation takes various forms. It depends what the carrot you are throwing to the private partner. The government, when you say a private partner, the government can go an approach of maybe, look, I will give you equity, but instead of paying me the equity, just basically use that money to revamp the place, build a hydro treater, reduce the ppm, the sulfur content of the product that comes out, build the gas pipeline that needs to basically build the furnace to power the refinery. Instead of giving me the money, take an equity stake and use the money to revamp the place and build the infrastructure needed. We need to have digital or computerized gantries. We need to have a lot of things at all, which is not there, and the government clearly cannot and does not have the money to invest. So a private partner does not necessarily mean that government is going to, like the PDS scenario where you are asked to bring a certain amount of investment over a certain period of time, then you take the place, and as a result, you are given a certain equity from running the place and making money. There are so many modules that can work. I'm sure Senor, as a businessman who now has an investment advisory firm, can also recommend a few things if government asks him.
No,
but,
I mean, his proposal is that privatize TOR outright. Well, what's yours?
But it's just on a lighter note.
Yeah, I know.
I've expanded my proposal, so
I'll come to you. Yes, I'll come to you shortly to expand. Yes, Kojopoku.
Yeah. So basically, well, look, we all agree on one thing. Look, for me, one of the things and why we asked the question over the weekend, which has brought up this interesting conversation, is that when you have somebody at a place and the person is being given a 3 months mandate, 3 months has expired and he's still there, we are concerned Ghanaians. We need to know what's going on, and that's why we asked the question. Okay, nobody has an interest, and we all want TOR to work because we think that if TOR, a good working TOR, will save Ghanaians and give us some breathing space and give the BDCs a competition in the market. Whether it's a viable one going forward or not, we all want to see that happen. The privatization thing is definitely a way to go, but what form it will take, government needs to decide exactly what they need to do. And if the technical and audit report, which is coming from the IMC, will help government do that, we are all looking forward to that.
Okay. Mr. Olsen, please expand. Yes.
Sorry. Very quick point. One of the terms of reference include receiving and assessing viable partnerships for TOR, if any. So it's in there. I'm looking at partnerships. So, but just that's the point I just.
Mr. Osei, please expand on your proposal for solving the TOR conundrum.
I will, but a quick submission on what the Kofi Poku said.
Yeah.
One, Kojo Poku said, one, BDCs are not in competition with a TOR. We import products from refineries anywhere in the world. We lift products from TOR. If you ask TOR today, which group of people, please get this out of your mind. BDCs are not at risk with a revamped TOR, a thriving TOR. It is in our interest that TOR will thrive, because when TOR thrives, we minimize our exchange risk. Our currency risk will drop. We make better money. But refining is serious business. It's commercial. 1 + 1 is equal to 2. You can't do -1 + -1 to get a +2. It doesn't happen. My proposal has been simple, and I've been consistent. You look at the industry reports, we have submitted this, and also the current government. TOR has useful assets. It has a huge debt burden. Thankfully, the ESLA that we engineered has become one of the mechanisms to hive off a part of its debt. There's still residual debt, hive off the rest. Value your current fiscal assets that are useful. Bring in a partner and use that as government equity in that new JV, and let that private partner, preferably a group of trading players, it could be local and international people, whatever mix it is, let them come and take over the place, bring in their investment as a new capital that is supposed to drive that new TOR. I have actually argued that it is a more viable way to actually look at having Ghana trigger its hub concept than actually going to build a whole new refinery. TOR is a very possible trigger of us being a refinery hub, and we must take good advantage of it. Most of the assets we have in our country are highly underutilized in the sector. From the storage facilities that you have at TOR, highly underutilized. About 20% is what is being utilized in the whole country. We have to come up with mechanisms to utilize all the assets, both private and public sector. There's no sentiment about this. Government is better off sitting back instead of investing $1.2 billion every now and then and not getting any value for it, rather having a thriving structure that it makes taxable income from. That is what government should be doing in our country. It is clear none of the governments are competent at running businesses sustainably and professionally and profitably. It becomes a vehicle for rent seeking, for staff to pilfer and all that. It doesn't simply work. The percentage in Ghana is too much. So let people know that when they lose money, it affects them. If you appoint me as a politician and I'm going to make decisions at all, and TOR loses money, I'll just carry my bag and go to my house. If you ask Bauer to become MD of TOR, he will carry his bag and go out after the losses are made. But if it is his own business, he knows that he can't just go home because it will really hit him personally. That is what we need, accountability in the structure. So hive off the debts, value your relevant infrastructure, which gives you a brownfield investment, and then get traders with expertise in refining to come and inject capital and run the place. Sit back and prepare it as your next Vodafone. It's as simple as that.
I want to take a break. When I return, I'll hear from Bauer. What's his own proposal to fix the problem? Stay with me. So we're discussing the issue with the TOR, major discoveries there at TOR. I still have with me Rodney from the communications head of the Energy Ministry. We've had Senior Hosseis on Zoom with us. Edward Bauer is a member of the minority on the Mines Energy Committee, and Kojo Poku, of course, is an energy analyst. Bauer, we've been talking about exploring the solutions. It's clear. I mean, we've started by appreciating how even an interim management committee, whose job it is to ensure that the place is audited, under their watch, it's still happening. So what would it take to fix the problem permanently with TOR?
I think that the prescriptions have always been out there. It's just that as a country, we have not been bold enough to buy them.
Is it lack of political will?
All of us do. No, first and foremost, yeah, political will is one of them. But I think that first and foremost, we all do know that it is said that,
I know.
At a capacity of 45,000 barrels a day in terms of processing, may not be very good for the viability of the company. And people have said that we should have a minimum of 100,000 barrels of crude being processed in a day. So this is one area in terms of expansion of the what they call it, the capacity of the refinery. Two, some of the parts of the because this refinery has been it's been around for some time. Yeah. Some of the systems they are obsolete. They need to be updated because this is one of the things that also account for some of the technical losses they have. So we need to do that. They have a very huge debt that is hanging on their necks. This is something that the shareholder must take a decision as to how to wipe that out.
No, but on the debt, can you address this for me very briefly? Mm-hmm. We've been paying this TOR recovery levy for decades, and it appears we haven't make a dent. So where is the money going? All the money, where does it go?
Let me say. I say with that. Being accused by Senor of trying to play politics. Let me state. Is it? Look. Let me state that. You remember that the TOR recovery. I mean, that was under Kufuor's regime, and I think that what Kufuor instituted made a lot of sense because over a period of time, subsidies that were under recoveries, generally, let me just use the word under recoveries, were not being paid for by government. So there was heaps and heaps of debt that was being put on TOR. Kufuor came and introduced the TOR recovery levy. The hope was that in 8 years we would have been able to solve that problem. Unfortunately, it never happened. You remember that in the course of the audit of the TOR recovery levy, journalists, part of the money was used under Asamoah Gwartey's time as a Minister of Information, was used in paying editors and news editors and what have you. So you realize that this was a misappropriation of funds that were supposed to be used in retiring that. So that is one challenge. Two, you now have, of course, and Senor has mentioned that with the Energy Sector Levy Act that was put in place, the idea was that in 5 years, that was the 2015 or the 2016, the levy was introduced. The idea was that by the end of the 5th year, which was supposed to be the sunset clause, that was 2017 ending, that we should have been able to retire all energy sector debt, and that included the TOR debt. Unfortunately, this government has a different strategy as to how they want to have that done. They issued a 10-year bond to be able to retire that. We still have accumulation of debt coming here and there, and we are not too sure exactly how we're handling these things. But for me, as a shareholder of TOR, government must just take a decision and say, look, if I want to have a viable refinery, first and foremost, the refinery must be freed from that overhanging debt on them. Indeed, look, do you know that just about 3-4 months ago, I had the opportunity to confront TOR, the management, just immediate past TOR, MD. And on issues that had come to my attention, one of them was that they were having challenges in even paying salaries to workers. You had a situation where for about 48 months, at the time I was confronting them, 48 months of their state contribution was in arrears and their provident fund. You had a situation, that is how bad the refinery had become. And so at one point there must be a decision as to whether there must be a direct offload of these particular challenges and giving it to a private sector or a joint venture. It will all depend on what are the opportunities available to us. Yeah. But I've always believed that if you can have GOIL working so well, of course, GOIL, government has shares in GOIL, isn't it? If you have GOIL working so well and being an example in terms of one of the entities in the downstream sector, it is possible to replicate that in other TOR. SOEs in the downstream sector, including TOR. I mean, and so for me, you may not necessarily have to just say, outright privatization. It could even be a joint venture. Yeah. It could be a particular percentage of it that is uploaded to private sector to be able to reinvest in the river.
But thank you, Rodney. Quick final words on this. So the end game is for this might go to cabinet because the president will have to finally take action on this. Exactly.
But let me just make this. When the minister was being vetted in Parliament, He made a very important statement. We have to find the right partnerships, management infrastructure, and equipment to enable TOR to function. We also need to invite other refineries into the system to make it better. So we are clearly looking at a paradigm shift here in terms of thinking, in terms of whether we should keep throwing money at it, in terms of whether we should sell TOR outright, or whether we should find a way to keep TOR working as an important strategic national.
So all that will be based on what the Inter-Manual Committee tells us.
Exactly. Their recommendation, remember, they're only recommendations.
Okay.
Government will have to...
Okay. Senor, you want to have a quick 30 seconds? Hello, Senor. If you have a mute, can you mute for me? Because
Nothing like a strategic asset that's making you lose money. Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Can you hear me, Evans?
Yes, I can. I can hear you, Senor.
There's nothing like a strategic asset that keeps making you lose money. So let's all stop this strategic asset story. There's nothing like that. There's not been one in only God knows how long. We have a strategic liability, an emotional liability. We want to take a decision, take a strong decision. The step the IMC is taking is something I fully support. I'm not against the IMC. Of course, there must be a sunset clause to their reign, and their tenure must come to an end. But the right decisions will have to be taken. Politicians will struggle to let TOR go, not because of any emotional thing. The truth of the matter is, it has been a place for all kinds of people to dip their hands and make only God knows what. From putting staff in there and participating in all kinds of deals that end up with TOR making losses. So letting TOR go, which for some people is a cash cow for themselves, will always be difficult. If you're honest about your commitment to TOR, I don't want to hear any politicians suggesting that let's have a way to control TOR. For what? You've controlled it for only God knows how long. What do you have to show for it apart from taking money from the Ghanaian people, the poor people, and paying 1.2 billion with nothing to show for it? No politician to suggest that we'll retain some kind of control. Retain the fiscal asset, value it, and that should be your only interest in there. This is the new Vodafone that ought to be, and let's turn around TOR and make it a bastion for this industry.
Rodney, thank you.
It is possible.
Senor, I'm grateful. Enjoy the rest of your evening, gentlemen.